Welcome to Tya Talk.
Hello.
Hey, we got an intro. Ooh,
Isn't
I
that
like that.
fancy? We're trying to get
Yeah.
intros for everything, but we do have an intro for Tya Talk. So I am here today with Carrie King and Deborah Wilson. Tya Master Carrie King, and Tya Coach Deborah Wilson. Where are you, Deborah?
In my garden, in
Nice.
England, in Wiltshire, in my garden. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're having good weather this summer, huh?
Yes, for once. Hoorah. It's beautiful. Oh, I think Otto the dog might be joining in the Tire Talk too.
I'm sure Rocco's going to join in by barking. At some point he's going to go nuts.
Yeah.
We'll all hear
All
him.
part of the
Luna
fun.
will chime in when she hears y'all barking.
Yeah, we'll just let the dogs take over and they'll do
Right.
the Tya Talk. It's fine.
Yeah, they're the most inspiring beings around, right?
Yeah.
So we have a topic. We've teed up a topic. Deborah's only with us for the first half of the hour. Your voice of limiting beliefs. We refer to this in the Tya community very often as your Claude voice. And if you haven't seen my video teaching on Claude, Claude is the name that I gave my voice of limiting beliefs. That voice that tells you that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, that it's never going to happen, it's never going to work, you might as well just give up, that negative voice that nags at you. We all have one. I named mine a long time ago. And the name Claude didn't have any meaning for me in my life whatsoever. It was just a name that I found it just didn't sound great. It just wasn't, my Claude. So I named it Claude. And the thing that did for me is it allowed me to identify it as something separate from me and sort of compartmentalize it as a thought bubble instead of something that was inside me. So that when it chimed in, I would notice it. And I would notice it and shut it down. And I made shutting it down just a system for myself. And I created the Tya practice based on setting up systems because I understood universal law my whole life, but I didn't necessarily understand how to operate in harmony with universal law until I created systems for myself. Because we all pick up habits, we pick up beliefs in our journey, especially very early in life. And that little voice of limiting beliefs starts out very young. For me, it did. I remember hearing things as a child and feeling unworthy and not good enough, and like I was never going to be or do or have the things that I wanted to be and do and have. And I created that voice. And then it became a vibration. So it took on a life of its own and would run on autopilot and did for many, many years until I learned how to shut it down. It's still there. It never really leaves you, but you learn how to shut it down. You learn how to detune it. You ultimately make peace with it. But when you make peace with it, it's no longer a trigger for you. So the process of creating this voice starts with giving it an identity that's outside of you, understanding that it is part of you, but it's a facet of you that you may want to detune. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything in the practice of Tya, but you may want to think about detuning the voice of limiting beliefs because that's the voice that keeps you from taking risks. That's the voice that keeps you from going on adventures. That's the voice that very often keeps you from that. It really is rooted in that ego-driven desire to hold yourself away from any suffering whatsoever. But ultimately, it limits your expansion. So we shut the voice down by recognizing it at the onset and then ultimately getting ahead of it so that you're aware that voice is present and it can come around, and you are aware of it. Once it's something that's separate from you, you become aware of it before it even starts, which is pretty damn magical. And then you can just ignore it because you're observing it as something outside of you. It's just something that you can detune, ultimately appreciate, and simply shut it down in your appreciation of it. Because once you appreciate something, once you really understand something, it's not a trigger anymore. You're in control of it. So that's why I created the Claude voice. And I teach that to everybody that comes through the Tya program, because when you go into something like Tya Boot Camp and you're starting to detune any and all transgressors as a system for the rest of your life, the Claude voice can become very active. the Claude voice is a battle in boot camp very often for people, because they're detuning their demons, they're detuning the matrix, and in the detuning, those things want to stay alive, they want to stick around, and you kind of wage this battle in the beginning, and then the battle becomes fun. After a little while, the battle becomes fun, but in the beginning, it's not always fun. In the beginning, it's a lot of work to start unraveling and unlearning all of the limiting beliefs that you've taught yourself throughout a lifetime. So, Deborah, I know you don't have a lot of time. So, if you want to kind of chime in and share your thoughts around detuning your version of Claude, and what you incorporate in your coaching of Tya clients, go for it.
Yeah, it was. I called mine Bertha from the Mad Woman in the Attic in Jane Eyre. And at first, it was quite alarming how often she would chime in. And when you first start out, obviously, you're trying to juggle so many different tools. And then it was almost like an added layer of self judgment about how much the Claude voice, or in my version, the Bertha voice, was chiming in. And I did, and I think that's quite normal when you're just getting all your toolkit and getting them all sorted out. Because as I say, I found that the added layer of judging myself for her being so prevalent in my experience. And then after a while, I realized that's just what everybody it feels like it's getting worse at the beginning because you're just really aware. Before, you weren't even aware that it was there. Like many people say, I don't have a voice in my head when they first start out. And then after a while, oh, that voice, right? Because I think we're so distanced from ourselves. There's a novel. I wish I could remember what the novel was. It said Mr. whatever his name, Mr. Smith, lived a short distance from his body, and I love that because I think that's how we are in the Matrix. We're so far from ourselves. We're so removed from our experience, almost as if we don't inhabit this physical vehicle, and we're just such a product of the matrix and of our conditioning. So actually then coming to terms with, yes, it was absolutely fine. The fact that I had the Bertha voice was not a problem. At first I thought that was the problem. That was not the problem. It's perfectly normal for everyone to have this voice of limiting beliefs. And it was actually became something really, really useful as a tool at first to even to set the clock throughout the day, to see if she was chiming in, because it was so prevalent. And I think that's the case for so many. It's there so often that you're not even aware of it, because it's just like you're not this a lot of time. So actually setting a clock and thinking, am I allowing her to talk at this point? That was how I started the process of unraveling from her. And after a while of
I think we're losing her.
sort of
I think Bertha's taken over
from
and
her,
she's winning
and
right
then
now.
I always think it's my internet because it's so fuzzy here sometimes.
Well, she's out in the garden, so she's probably not so close to Wi-Fi.
Was
Yeah,
it?
you
Am I
kind
there?
of froze there.
Oh,
Bertha took over.
oh, okay. I'll move inside and let somebody take over for a while. I'll move inside and see if it's better.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I'm laughing because I too had the same experience. Like, I kind of knew there was voices in my head, but I really wasn't aware of it. And then when I became aware of it, wow, I had no idea how prevalent that was always playing in the background.
Well, and you're right. It doesn't always have to be it isn't specifically a voice in your head. We call it a voice in your head, but a lot of times it's just a thought that drops in.
Yes.
It's an ego-driven or ego-manufactured thought that drops in, just like source can drop into your mind. Your mind is this receptor of information, and the information can come from your source, or the information can come from your ego. There's that duality in our polarized environment that everybody has. Everybody has ego and everybody has source installed, pre-wired. We come that way.
Yeah.
And your source voice, your authentic source voice, is always going to be an expansive, creative, loving voice, always. But your ego voice is more steeped in polarity. So your ego could be a big driver. Yes, you're worthy. Yes, you're the best. Yes, you're so much better than everybody else at all of these things, and you're just going to get out there and you're going to crush it. And it's this big driver that drives us into our human experience, which is great because source doesn't really do that. Source, the source connection. That's what I channel when I channel the stream, and the stream isn't saying you're go get it, go out there and crush. You're just going to do, the source isn't, that's judgment. And source isn't judgmental. Source is saying, have your expansive journey, go out and unravel and screw some things up and create some things and expand your being in this vibrational journey. Your ego is the component that drives you. It's also the component that limits you. It's that idea that can turn on a dime and tell you that you're not worthy or that you're not good enough. And there's really that duality going on in everyone, because anyone that is hyper confident all the time, there's a fear lying under that of, if I'm not like this, then everything's going to fall apart. So there's that it's always insecurity at its core.
Yeah. And that vibe of I'm right, you're wrong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my way's the best. I'm the right. I know it all. I can do it all. That's so ego driven. And it's just interesting to me when going through Tya, and then now the stream delivered about, being in the matrix and what the matrix was about and operating systems. I had this huge moment of clarity that our mind is just like our computer. It's just programmed. And we can change it. And just like our computer, when our computer gets glitchy, I love when I'd always call tech support, and the first thing they say, did you try turning it on and off? And I'm like, well, it connected to me, like how to turn my Claude voice, which I named Agatha after, never mind. I can't think of the movie right now, but she was a mean principal in a movie. And principal of a school. But I can turn Agatha on and off. If she's really playing all day, I can say, no, I'm not playing that today. I'm going to turn that program off. And that really, really has helped me through noticing that she showed up again a little bit after I thought I had completely detuned her. But I'm appreciating her now, very, very much so, because that's part of my ego, and it's a piece of me, my human experience. And so, like you said, David, there were moments where she was driving me. You can do this. You're right. Keep going. And yeah.
Yeah. Ego is not all negative, and it's not something that we're going to release. I do hear a lot of people that get into spiritual circles and they start thinking that ego is bad and it's something that we need to get rid of. And I've even heard people say that they've released their ego completely and they're operating whatever territory they think they're operating in, which is so ego driven. I'm superior. It's like people say, I'm an old soul and this is my last lifetime. I'm done. I'm so advanced that I'm through being human. I'm never going to be in physical form again. And the clarity that I receive from Source is we're never done. We're never done. And if you're just, really, if you think about it, if you're just a human being and you're thinking that you're done, you're probably not done at all. And the operating in polarity, that is the whole purpose of a physical environment, is to move through a polarized experience and have whatever experience you have. So if you believe it's your last lifetime, that's fine. We're poking a bit of fun there, but it's fine. There's no right or wrong in any of this. It's just interesting to observe sometimes when someone thinks that they're so enlightened as a human being that this is their last lifetime and they're never going to express themselves in physical again, ever, that they're eternally going to be source. But source is expressing in physical infinitely, because all of these strands of consciousness that we perceive as independent ourselves, our own consciousness, we're strands of source. We're expressions of source, having the physical journey infinitely. So to think that we're done with it is really a judgment of the current life that we're in, either thinking that it's so difficult that we don't want to come back and do it again. And so we're sort of creating a reality where this is it. Or we think that we're so advanced and so evolved that there can't be anything else possibly to learn. And I understand that because I have felt that way in my spiritual journey. I have absolutely felt like, wow, I know it all now. I figured it all out. And just when I get to the place where I think I figured it all out, I will demanifest something so quickly. I'll unravel something. Something will just blow up to take me right back into that old space. And that's what vibrational flow does for us. It's sort of guaranteeing that our vibration is going to be dragged down from time to time. And when it gets dragged down, oh, wait, you thought you were done? No. Here's a whole new pile of shit for you to work on. And I've done that through over and over and over again. And now I've come to appreciate the new piles of shit that get presented to me.
Right. Like I was saying too, now that the human the experience, I found that it was like when I was just getting the tools sorted out or figured out, it was almost like a rejection of the egoic side and sort of like, no, I want to just be, and then like, of course it's out balance, and we are here for the human. That's exactly what we are for. And then I found that I've got into much deeper levels of appreciation for this very human experience and seeing so much more beauty in it, whereby before I was only confused because I knew it was a picture, but I didn't know what the whole picture was. So I couldn't really completely value the beautiful human experience we have. Whereas now I see very much why I'm here, to have this human experience. And that has given me much more appreciation for every single facet. It's almost like you're learning, it almost feels like being, I'm not going to say reborn, hallelujah, but almost like being an infant discovering, oh wow, this is taste. Oh wow, hear it. And it's sort of in layers and layers of yes, I think on both sides, like your experience deepens, and the same goes for the human aspect. If that resonates with either of you.
Copy again, so I thought we were kind of losing Deborah there. Carrie, did you get that? I didn't get all that.
I did, and it does resonate with me because I was just this past couple weeks really enjoying the fact because I too, David, think, oh, I found this Tya spiritual practice and it's amazing and magical and wonderful and my life is just going to be perfect. And then I go through boot camp and mastery and discover that actually the down DTS human moments when I do create or blow up something is where the fun and the enjoyment really is for me. And that it never ends the levels of joy and clarity, which just made me so excited because really this is just the beginning. Like we're just at the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even really, Tya's only, you delivered this practice, 5 years ago? 4 years ago. So it's really just the beginning.
Well, 4 to 5 years ago. We started boot camp. We started boot camp in the beginning of 2018. We started boot camp, and boot camp wasn't boot camp; it was abundance breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
And that quickly morphed into the Tya practice, and then the Tya practice in that course morphed into Tya boot camp. It became something much bigger than just a course in how to release abundance blocks.
Yeah.
And it's still about that. Sometimes I think we need to get back to basics and really talk about that abundance block thing, because that
Yes.
through COVID, that became less important.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think with COVID, it was no more about people's focus was no longer just about I want stuff. I want to heal something. I want to manifest something. It moved into I want an operating system that helps me make sense of all of this craziness that's going on around me.
Yes. Yes.
And it really came in perfect timing for
Mm-hmm.
COVID. Divine timing, I believe, that the stream comes through. I'm guided to quit my job, start the podcast, write the book, and start sharing. And not that it changed the world or anything like that, but in its infancy, a lot of people adopted an operating system that allowed us as a community to move through COVID and now everything that continues to unfold post COVID, or post the first 2 years of the pandemic, um, with a sense of well-being that I think a lot of us would not have had without the practice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, and the tools never change, the pillars never change. But what we're experiencing as a community and personally, each of us, is such expansion. And just as I said, I keep thinking I'm going to reach this level of, okay, it's all clear and I'm joyful and I've got this. And no, it just continues to grow and expand. And that, to me, that's what just makes me even more excited each day, because it's like, okay, the more I practice and use my tools, the more beauty and clarity and joy of being in the matrix and watching it and observing it and knowing that I get to create it, and being inspired into, well, what am I going to create? Like, what's next? What can we create? And it's just so exciting. And again, feeling like we literally just started. Like, this is the first stages. And excited to see. The other day I was just like, I want to do this like all the time, and see what we do, what we create as a Tya community. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, and we keep talking
Very
about how
exciting
important the
times.
community aspect is of all of this. That we, I'm sorry, Deborah, as you're talking, you were frozen there. The community part is so very important for most of us, because it brings us back to the practice again and again and again. We are, for those of you that are patrons on our Patreon page, we are delivering a new guided meditation today that I'm really excited to share. I know Carrie has listened to it a few times. Deborah, have you had a chance to listen to it? She may be listening to it right now. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I had an amazing experience with it yesterday. Oh, sorry, is it? Can you hear me?
I can right now.
No, I did.
Did you
If
get a
anyone
chance
can hear me,
to
I
try
had an
the
amazing. Okay. Yes, I had an amazing experience with it yesterday. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely takes you. It's
Really.
35 minutes, and it takes you on this journey out of the matrix. And we need to put a disclaimer on it that it takes you way out of the matrix. It's a very heady experience, and you need to be obviously alone somewhere to do it. And then you need to allow about another 30 minutes after you do it to sort of just be. You just be in silence and sort of contemplate. I think a lot of the clarity comes after it. So it was pretty magical that the stream delivered this, and I'm happy that we were able to get it out to the patrons. So that's going to happen today. The people that have listened to it so far, again, everybody's had a great experience with it. I've had amazing experiences with it, and so I'm really, really excited. It's called Out of the Matrix. It's 35 minutes, but you need to set aside an hour to do this meditation. But it's something that's, I think it's worthwhile. So that will be popping up in Patreon today for patrons. Is everybody frozen but me?
Here.
Okay.
I think, yeah, if anyone could, I'm going to now anyway. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi, as we call it, is so here. I'm going to say bye-bye and leave.
Well, thank you for joining,
anyone
Deborah.
in Thailand who's listening. Sorry,
Thanks,
it was
Deborah.
not more stable. Have a wonderful rest. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Usually it's
All
my
right.
and I was telling Deborah before we got on that they're expected some kind of I don't know if it's a hurricane or just bad tropical storm. So I set the intention this morning that the hurricane would just keep on moving, but we would get the lovely breeze and rain. And so far, that's all I'm seeing is lovely rain and breeze. I love a storm like you, David, and watching the clouds come in this morning was just fabulous. It's one of my favorite things to do is watch the storms. And it fascinates me because I guess I never really noticed before, maybe because I hadn't lived in the Caribbean Sea, but it's those beautiful blues and greens and different colors. And when the storms come in, the ocean changes colors too. And I never noticed that before. And it's really fabulous to watch. It's like a light show. So no hurricanes, and I still have internet. But
Nice.
yeah.
Well, you get the lovely thunderstorm part of it, not the wind hurricane damaging part of it. Would be fantastic.
And
well, I think we've gone pretty deep into talking about the Claude voice and the process of detuning. Step one, give it an identity that doesn't have any other meaning in your life, so that it's not conflicting with your childhood bully or some relative that you like or something like that. You really do want it to be its own unique thing that you make separate from you. And then you separate it out so that you notice it at the onset. You detune it, not by battling it, because when you battle something, you give it life. But what you're doing is appreciating it and just shutting it down. Not today, not interested. Thank you, but no thank you. That sort of vibration. And then you will notice it quicker and quicker at the onset. Sometimes you'll even notice it before it really sets in, and you'll be able to sort of shut it down that way. And then it just stops coming around. You really do shut that aspect of your persona down in doing this. And then it's sort of just like this old friend that served to keep you limited for a while that doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's key too, which is why I picked a name from a movie of a character, because you don't want to name it somebody that was in your life that may still be in your life.
Because you're not thinking of your voice, you're thinking of that person.
Yes.
When you're shutting this down. And if you've got this voice covers all sorts of ground for you. And any person isn't going to absolutely affect everything about you, where your voice of limiting beliefs will. So it's a pretty powerful thing. And it's a pretty powerful practice to detune that. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you all for watching whenever you're watching this. And Carrie, thanks for being on. Thank you, Deborah, to being on as long as you could. I think that's as much as we need to cover today in Tya Talk, because I think that's a big one. So be sure, if you're a patron on our Patreon, to grab that guided meditation. We're going to put access to it out today. And everyone that's a member of Patreon, as long as you'll have access to it. So that will be put out today. You can try the guided meditation and just post in there in the comments and let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David.